This brass library is three things, and one thing it's not. We got a new flagship brass sample library from Audio Imperia Poseidon, and it's quite gorgeous. Two ensembles, individual brass sections, and sound design. The two ensembles are the Meridian and the Azure ensemble. One is contemporary, one is more typically symphonic. The Meridian ensemble has two horns, two flugelhorns, two euphoniums, and two trombones. The Azure ensemble, on the other hand, has two trumpets, three horns, two trombones, and one bass trombone. Now, besides these two ensembles, we have individual sections in a quite small section size. We got two trumpets, two French horns, two tenor trombones, and one bass trombone. I guess they didn't find a spare tuba. And then we got sound design. Spoiler, this is much more in-depth than what we're used from Audio Imperia's sound design editions in their orchestral sample libraries. Poseidon is three things at once. And one thing it's not. It's an orchestral brass library, it's a Swells library too, and it's a comprehensive sample library for cinematic sound design. What is it not? In my opinion, Poseidon is not your standard generalist bread and butter sample library for everyday brass writing. Why? I'm going to tell you a little bit later. So the first of the three things, orchestral brass library. Yes, it is one. It has typical and not so typical playing techniques or articulations, which focus a bit on longer textural articulations. For example, we got sustain notes. The tone is pretty. It has character. We got sustains with a mute for a more squeezed sound. Short staccatissimos. Marcados, which are accentuated notes, and in Poseidon they are pretty short. We got slight bend sustains. Flutter tongues. Now, a highlight, airy texture sustains. These are really cool. These are wonderful. They remind me a bit of the whisper sustains from the Pacific ensemble strings for performance samples, and they are just lovely for calmer and more subtle composing. Something that brass sample libraries often suck at. We got half-tone and whole-tone trills. And effect articulations like multiphonics, and air noises. Who knew I needed people blowing air into their brass instruments without actually playing a note in my life? But it is useful for texture effects, and if used sparingly, to add a flavor of live performance to our mockups. Now, the seasoned orchestral DAW composers amongst you have noticed something unspeakable. There's no legato. Yes, Poseidon is a $300+ sample library, and it comes without a single legato transition. Was it too expensive to record it? Was there not enough time? Didn't it fit into the concept? I don't know. But Kevin, you need legato to play melodies. Yeah, kinda. It really helps to have notes connected with legato transitions when playing melodies. At first, I was bummed out. Then I tried writing some music with Poseidon, and I found out that the lack of legato does not really hurt the library as much as I thought. Yes, it would have been great if there was a legato for the sections, I'm not gonna lie, like for the horns and the trumpets and the trombones, so you could pretend like you have a bread and butter brass library. When I actually started using the library, writing a little demo piece you'll hear at the end of the video, I tried to give it a shot anyway. I wrote some lines and I didn't mind much. I don't know if it's the attacks or the release or the programming, but you can play different notes and they sound kinda connected anyway. It's maybe not the perfect illusion of legato. You won't be writing huge and soaring melodies that are in the foreground of the mix, but that's not what Poseidon is meant to be used for anyway. That would be rather something that you would like to use Talos for. But for the occasional melodic movements in these subtle brass writings that you do with Poseidon, these sustains work. That's my opinion. Now, the second of the three things that Poseidon is, an organic swells library, or they call it wave motions. We got 4 recorded lengths for swells for the normal, flutter, and muted sustains. Flutter sounds something like this. Very gnarly, I like it. Muted. And then we got rapid swells. Very nice, very loud. And we got rapid echo swells, which give like a second burst after the first one. Now these wave motions, or swells, are pretty useful because they help solve a big problem of orchestral brass libraries. Usually you can't just play a brass instrument in a sample library and ramp up the mod wheel. Like here, you hear that it sort of fades into the second dynamic layer, and you have this weird connection in between the round and quiet part and the loud and raspy layer, and then they sort of cross-grade and it doesn't really work. It sounds unnatural. Ugh. These swells here, the wave motions, they don't need to crossfade. It's a natural performance. They go pretty high up in the dynamics before gently ebbing down. The good thing, the swells are recorded in multiple dynamic layers, so they don't always go up all raspy and metallic if you keep the modulation low. There's a speed knob to stretch these swells for anything in between the different speeds. So if you have a swell in your track and longest would be too long and long would be too short, then you can take, for example, the long one and just speed it down a little bit. And that way you can make sure that your swells are in time. Very nice. Now, the wave motions do not have the same smart behavior that I, for example, love in string controls by Stress of sampling, where you can just add notes to the swell and have them join the level of the swell. In Poseidon, each new note triggers the swell from the beginning, so it would sound like this. One note already finishes the swell and the other one starts from the beginning, so they don't end in time. Okay, so you won't be changing notes during the swell and rather play one note or one chord at once. But for that, it's pretty amazing. In my opinion, such a functionality would have been great for Poseidon, and it would have fit very well into the whole wave and ocean design concept of the library. But the wave motions are great little helpers for swelling brass movements in the background, or even for layering them with the sustains to add some extra movement. Now, the third part that Poseidon is it is a sound design library. We're not talking about these small sound design additions that we know from Araya or Talos, where you have like one folder with additional sound design. No, Poseidon has a fully fledged engine. Audio Imperia calls this the all-in-one engine. What a brilliant name. We'll probably see it in more future releases by Audio Imperia, because if you look at the browser, you will see that okay, there's slots for more libraries, so they'll probably do something with it. That would explain why it's so big, and also that would explain why it's much more useful than with Audio Imperia's other orchestral sample libraries, where the sound design part more seems like an afterthought or a nice to have addition. Here it's a crucial part of the sample library. We got 3 layers for organic and synthetic samples. We can put every single articulations from the normal patches into these slots, mix them with pads, drones and effects, and further process them. There's a browser with over 100 sound design presets for the lazy folks like me, organized by tags. The sound design nicely combines the organic brass samples with synth elements. Some sound beautiful, others kinda disturbing. We can save our own presets, of course, and easily assign our own tags. Very nice. There are effects, a rhythm engine where we can chop, pan, pitch, and filter stuff. My feedback for Audio Imperia, please show us a playhead to visualize where we are in our sequence. That would be very helpful. We got granular processing as well. Really cool. There is a lot of master effects, EQ, compressor, stereo field option, and again, a lot more for the advanced folk. Lots of knobs. Honestly, the UI, I'm not a huge fan of this, but okay, it's like separated in these rough areas, and then you got all the settings at once. It doesn't win a design award for me, but I don't mind that much. Poseidon has 4 mic positions and 2 mixes. The classic mix and the modern mix, like we know from Audio Imperia. Classic mix sounds more normal, I guess. The modern mix adds some processing to it and sounds snappier, more suitable for example, cinematic music. We got spot mics, the Decker, mid mics, and far. The sustains have up to 4 dynamic layers, so the cross grades are definitely not horrible. And also the shorts have up to 5 round robins. Quick summary, pros and cons. The pros. We got a wonderful tone. It's an organic sounding brass library, just like I like my brass. The 2 different ensembles are a big pro, the contemporary Meridian one and the symphonic Azure one. They are useful, especially in my opinion, the Meridian ensemble has a tone that you don't find in too many other brass sample libraries, because euphonium and flugelhorn are just stuff that you don't find everywhere. The small section size also opens a little bit of a different perspective on brass compared to maybe some other brass libraries that you may already have. It has a high dynamic range, and in my opinion, it's strong, especially in the lower dynamics. Another pro, Audio Imperia's effective pyramid engine, adjustable sample delay, 2 mixes with 1 click, simple and advanced control over the mic positions. I like it, good stuff. And Poseidon has a detailed, powerful sound design engine for hybrid and cinematic scoring that feels like a proper sound design engine. The cons, there's no legato. Seriously, yes, that's a big con in my opinion. It makes this an additional brass library, and it makes it not your only brass sample library that you may need. You will need a different brass library if you are doing like, you know, traditional brass scoring. This one is more textural plus sound design. There's no legato, and there are not enough short articulations in my opinion to make this a bread and butter generalist sample library. For example, there's no staccato or sforzando, but also Poseidon doesn't try to be this like, you know, generalist. There are a few bugs. For example, the airy textures of the horns sound out of tune sometimes. Please fix this. I don't know if it's intended because it's hard to play the horn in this articulation, but if I play an A note, I don't want a G sharp to play. The UI of the sound design engine to me looks completely cut off from the rest of the sample library, and it doesn't look very visually stunning to me. Personally, I would have enjoyed a more modern, flat design that fits to the rest of the pyramid engine UI. All right, I don't mind much. The juicy part, should you buy it? Are you looking for a standard orchestral brass library? Maybe your first orchestral brass library for everyday bread and butter composing? No. Lack of legato if you need prominent melodies. Sometimes you want to write loud melodies, and then legato will be handy to have. There's only one short length, the staccatissimo. There's a lack of a tuba. There's no solo instruments besides the one bass trombone, and the relatively small French horn count, just 2, make Poseidon not the best generalist. Yes, the Azure ensemble has 3, but then you have an ensemble and it's sort of all baked together. Are you looking for a brass specialist for loud, epic cinematic music? No. Get Talos instead. That one is made for loud and epic cinematic music. Are you looking for a library that shines at the lower dynamics, moves and evolves, that can provide a bed of warm, deep brass, combines the organic sound of brass with atmospheric sound design that's highly tweakable? Yes, Poseidon will make you pretty happy. I'm confident Audio Imperia will iron out the last technical tweaks sooner rather than later, and then you got a pretty awesome brass library that's a bit different from all the others. And I think that's what it wants to be. I wrote a little demo for Poseidon. I didn't use the sound design and tried to explore its more organic and subtle side. Let me know if you have any questions about the sample library in the comments. I'm going to answer and help you out. Hope you're all doing well. See you soon.